Hi there, it's Carly from Learn English with Carly here, and I really hope that you and your family are doing well and that things are ticking along nicely for you. Today you find me here at Kootenay Lake here in beautiful BC, Canada. Now, do you remember when we first met? Do you remember when you first watched one of my videos here on YouTube? What do you remember learning? The verb remember can be tricky to use, and it is often confused with the verb to remind. Let's look at these two verbs in depth today. We will practice these verbs with a test towards the end of this video. Before we start today, please do hit that subscribe button. If we remember something or someone, we keep that information or person in our mind. We won't forget it. If we don't remember, then of course we forget. I always remember my mum's birthday. Where did you park the car? I can't remember. I remember Ryan, but I don't remember his brother. I remembered to call my sister. I just remembered, I need to buy milk today. Did you remember to turn the oven off? The class will always remember their English teacher. Can you remember what my YouTube channel is called? You'll notice after the word remember, we can use a variety of things. We have my mum's birthday, Ryan, to call, to turn off, their English teacher, and a question word, what. This makes the verb remember really flexible. We can also use the verb remember with to and an infinitive to form the imperative when we give instructions. Remember to do your homework tonight. Remember to buy a present for Andrea. Remember to wash the dishes. Remember to save your work so you don't lose it. We can also use remember with the verb and ing to show that we have a memory of something that happened in the past. I remember meeting you before. I remember having a blue teddy bear when I was 5 years old. Sean remembers receiving an email from Janet. What's the difference with the verb to remind then? Remind has two meanings. The first meaning of remind is if a person or a thing makes you think about another person or thing, or maybe they look like that person or thing. My niece reminds me of my sister. This means that my niece looks just like my sister did when she was younger, or she does things that are just like my sister does or did. That song reminds me of my grandmother. The song makes me think of my grandmother. The smell of croissants reminds me of my trip to Paris. Lucy's behaviour reminds me of a wild animal. In this sentence, we are comparing the way Lucy behaves with a wild animal. I think of a wild animal when I see Lucy behaving badly. Our second use of remind is what we do to help someone so that they don't forget to do something. Remind me to send an email to Diane today. I must remind Alan to be at the train station for 6 o'clock. Can you remind Gavin about the dinner on Sunday? I just called Elizabeth to remind her about the meeting tomorrow. The teacher reminded her students about their homework. What do you notice about the word that comes after remind in each of our sentences? That's right, remind is always followed by a pronoun, a person. Me, you, him, her, us, them, or the person's name. Okay, our two verbs remember and remind have different meanings, but they are often confused in their usage by English learners. So let's try them out and see if we can now use them correctly in our little test. In each gap, decide whether we need to use remember or remind. Hint, look out for the person to help you decide when to use remind. Okay, here we go. Number 1. Remember or remind me to get bread later on. We have to use remind. We have me straight after it. Remind me to get bread later on. Number 2. Remember or remind when Charlotte fell off the swing. This is a memory, so we have to use remember. Remember when Charlotte fell off the swing? Number 3, remember or remind Fred to post that letter. We have to say remind Fred to post that letter. We have a person's name here. Number 4, I'm Carly. Did you remember or remind? Hopefully this one is easy. I'm Carly. Did you remember? Number 5, I remember or remind receiving an email about that. Here we should use remember because it is followed by the infinitive with ing, receiving. Number 6, I must remember or remind to pay the electric bill. We have to use remember. I must remember to pay the electric bill. I need to do it. I must remember or remind Julian to pay the electric bill. This time we use remind because we have a person's name, Julian. Remind Julian to pay the electric bill. Number 8, sorry, I've forgotten your name. Can you remember or remind me? Again, we have to use remind here because it's followed by the pronoun me. Can you remind me? Number 9, Caroline really remembers or reminds me of her mum. Yes, of course, it has to be reminds. It's followed by me as well. Number 10, I don't remember or remind my first day at school. Correct, we have to use remember because it is a memory. Number 11, I can remember or remind his face, but I can't remember or remind his name. In the first gap, we need remember. I can remember his face. And in the second gap, also remember, but I can't remember his name. It's not in my memory. Number 12, remember or remind Jackson to clean the bathroom. We have to use remind. It's followed by a person's name. Number 13, remember or remind to do your homework. Here we need to use remember. Remember to do your homework. Number 14, do you remember or remind when we went to Paris? No? Then let me remember or remind you. In the first gap, we should use remember. Do you remember when? And in the second one, let me remind you. And 15, our final question. Hopefully this video has remembered or reminded you about these two verbs and you will remember or remind how to use them. In the first gap, we need to use reminded, and in the second gap, remember. Well done. And that's it. I really hope that you found this lesson useful and it's now clear to you when to use remember and remind, and also their meanings, of course. Please do comment to practice the meanings of these two verbs and let me know what you think about this video. I look very much forward to working with you again next time. Take care. Bye.